To use that as a guidebook for life, you have to kind of ignore some of the stuff that doesn't make sense. Now, this is crazy. Why was the Book of Enoch removed from the Bible? There's some sort of a lesson in the myth, some sort of allegory. There's things about these stories that probably have hints of truth.
The Book of Enoch is one of the most mysterious ancient texts ever written, packed with shocking tales of fallen angels, giants, forbidden knowledge, and visions of the apocalypse.
Know that Enoch was a real powerful man because he's talked about in the Bible, yet his book is not in the Bible.
Recently, it's been gaining attention again, even making waves on the Joe Rogan Experience. Why did the Vatican reject this book, and what secrets did AI uncover when analyzing its true meaning? The Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch is an ancient Jewish work that was once highly regarded by certain groups and later rejected or ignored by the mainstream Jewish and Christian traditions. Though not part of the official Hebrew Bible or most Christian canons today, it continues to draw attention from historians, theologians, and anyone interested in biblical mysteries. Scholars date different parts of the manuscript to various times from about 300 BC to 100 BC, suggesting that it emerged in a complex period when many diverse religious ideas were shared and recorded. This timeline puts it close to other key writings that were circulating among Jewish communities in the centuries before and after the dawn of the Common Era. The text is preserved most fully in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which keeps the Book of Enoch in its scriptural collection. This acceptance means that, while most Western Christian denominations and Jewish communities do not treat it as canonical, it remains officially recognized by one of the oldest Christian churches in the world. In this Ethiopian context, the book is sometimes referred to as 1 Enoch to distinguish it from later related writings. Historically, the Book of Enoch has sparked debates over its origins and legitimacy. Early references to it appear in the writings of church fathers like Tertullian and Clement of Alexandria, who sometimes quoted or respected it. Among the Dead Sea Scrolls found at Qumran, fragments of the Book of Enoch were discovered in Aramaic, confirming that it was available and possibly well studied in certain Jewish groups around the late Second Temple period. The text revolves around visions and teachings attributed to Enoch, a biblical figure who appears in the book of Genesis. Enoch is said to have lived 365 years, which is significantly shorter than most of the other patriarchs listed in Genesis. Additionally, the Bible states that Enoch walked with God and was taken by God instead of facing death. This small reference in Genesis opened the door to many traditions that expanded on his life, his relationship with the divine, and his fate. It was natural for later writers to speculate about Enoch's unique place among biblical figures, and the Book of Enoch is one major outcome of that speculation. Because many parts of ancient Jewish literature were written to explain mysteries not addressed in the Torah or the prophets, it is not surprising that Enoch's unusual story inspired further writing. During the centuries before Jesus' time, Jewish groups produced various texts, often labeled as apocryphal or pseudepigraphal, which answered questions that the official scriptures did not. The Book of Enoch belongs to this broad category. It attempts to fill gaps, especially about angels, the nature of the universe, and the end of days. Over time, the Book of Enoch was sidelined by mainstream authorities. Some have argued that this was due to its striking claims about fallen angels, the birth of giants known as Nephilim, and the possibility of advanced knowledge passed down to humanity. Others point to its references that sound too much like descriptions of the coming of a Messiah, soon to be identified with Jesus Christ by early Christians. These factors made it controversial in both rabbinic Judaism and many Christian circles. Yet, it survived in Ethiopia, where it remains a living text. Enoch in biblical genealogy. Enoch is introduced in the Hebrew Bible as part of the genealogy tracing back to Adam, the first man. According to Genesis, he is a great-grandfather of Noah, which ties him directly into the lineage of the flood story. This part of the genealogy is found in Genesis 5, which names the patriarchs from Adam through to Noah. Each patriarch is said to have lived for many centuries, but Enoch stands out because he is said to have lived 365 years. And then he was not, for God took him. This phrase, God took him, has puzzled believers and scholars for centuries. Most biblical figures are simply said to have died, but Enoch's story is special. This difference led to the idea that he might have been carried away or translated into heaven without facing mortality in the usual sense. In the text of Hebrews 11:5 in the New Testament, there is a reference to Enoch not seeing death because of his faith. That short biblical statement gave a foundation for further speculation, fueling the stories compiled in the Book of Enoch. Jewish traditions and folklore often elaborate on biblical figures that have minimal but suggestive descriptions. In Enoch's case, the gap was large enough to allow entire myths or extended narratives to develop around him. Later, interpreters claimed that Enoch was shown the mysteries of creation, the structure of the universe, and the mechanism of heavens, all of which he recorded in writings for future generations. It is also worth mentioning that some traditions identify Enoch with Melchizedek, a mysterious priest-king mentioned in Genesis around the time of Abraham. Melchizedek is depicted as a priest of God Most High, and his sudden appearance and lack of family background in the book of Genesis made him a fascinating figure. Although this identification of Enoch with Melchizedek is not universally accepted, it is part of a broader tradition that tries to connect different ancient characters who had unusual relationships to God and to humankind. In various apocryphal and pseudepigraphal texts, Enoch is said to share wisdom with his descendants, often focusing on moral, spiritual, or cosmic topics. He is portrayed as a righteous man who stood out in a world that was increasingly corrupt, especially during the generations before the flood. When we combine this with the fact that Enoch supposedly did not experience normal death, it is easy to see why stories of his journeys to heavenly realms became so widespread in ancient religious texts. The Book of Enoch uses this background to unfold narratives about Enoch's encounters with divine beings, his warnings to the fallen angels, and his role in revealing hidden wisdom to humanity. Despite being excluded from the Hebrew Bible, Enoch remains a well-known figure because of the tantalizing mention of his disappearance and the numerous legends surrounding him. Medieval Jewish mystics, like those involved in the Merkabah tradition, sometimes depicted Enoch as a heavenly scribe or angelic figure. This idea that Enoch transformed into an angel after being taken by God is reflected in some segments of the Book of Enoch, where Enoch takes on a role that goes beyond that of a normal human prophet or sage. The Watchers, origins, motives, and impact. A central theme in the Book of Enoch is the account of the angel called the Watchers, who were meant to watch over humanity but instead fell into corruption. These Watchers, numbering 200, descended to earth in the days of Jared, Enoch's father, and formed an oath to carry out their plans. Semjaza is named as their leader in most versions of the text, and he worries that if only he dares to break divine law, he will bear all the guilt. However, the other angels commit themselves to the same deed, swearing an oath together. Their sin involves taking human wives and teaching forbidden knowledge to humankind. In Genesis 6:1-4, this idea briefly appears. The sons of God see that human women are beautiful, take them as wives, and produce a hybrid offspring known as the Nephilim. In the Book of Enoch, these Nephilim are described as bloodthirsty giants who devastate the earth with violence and wickedness. The text says that the size of these giants was enormous and that they consumed much of Earth's resources, even turning to cannibalism and other forms of corruption. One specific watcher, Azazel, teaches humans about metalworking, weapons, cosmetics, and other crafts that lead to vanity and violence. Others teach enchantments, astrology, knowledge of clouds, or how the constellations work. This sudden outpouring of advanced knowledge, according to the Book of Enoch, moves humans away from natural reverence for God. Instead, it leads them into pride, warfare, and various sins. The appearance of these fallen angels and their giant offspring becomes a main reason for the Great Flood. In Enoch's narrative, the archangels Michael, Uriel, Raphael and Gabriel appeal to God to intervene against the Watchers and their children. God sends Uriel to warn Noah of the coming flood, instructing him on how to survive. Raphael is told to bind Azazel, while Michael is told to punish the rest of the Watchers. This explains how the chaos is eventually controlled and how only Noah's righteous line survives. This story gives a background to the biblical flood tale, suggesting that humanity's corruption was not just moral failure, but also partially engineered by angelic beings who introduced forbidden arts. For some readers, this is more dramatic than the brief statement in Genesis 6. It also offers a bigger stage on which to place Enoch's role. Enoch serves as a messenger, witnessing these events and pleading with God for mercy, although the outcome is that the Nephilim and the Watchers meet divine judgment. The Book of the Watchers. The Book of the Watchers is usually seen as the earliest and perhaps the most influential part of 1 Enoch. It begins with an announcement of judgment against the angels who fell and also acts as a warning to humanity. Enoch is presented as a righteous man whose eyes are opened by God, allowing him to see the visions of heaven. He witnesses the spiritual realms and learns about everything from the origins of the angels to the destiny of the righteous. One point that stands out is that this section frames Enoch as a mediator. He is told about the upcoming punishment of the Watchers, but then also asked by the Watchers themselves to plead their case before God. In some versions, he carries the Watchers' petition to the divine throne, though their request for forgiveness is denied. This part of the text stresses the gravity of cosmic order. Angels have a set role, and crossing lines between the divine and human spheres leads to dire consequences. The Book of the Watchers also describes how Enoch travels through various parts of creation. He visits different layers of heaven or different mystical locations, such as places where the spirits of the dead wait for judgment and where the angels who sinned are bound. These descriptions offer an early example of Jewish apocalyptic literature in which a visionary is taken through heavenly realities to learn secrets about the future or the moral structure of the universe. This section heavily features the theme of a coming end. It explains that someday God will come with his holy armies to judge all beings. This was a powerful message to people living in uncertain times, reminding them that all earthly power has to reckon with a higher authority. The Book of the Watchers also reminds its readers that while angels are mighty, they are not above divine law, and that humanity too will be held accountable for how it responds to given knowledge. In exploring Enoch's role, we see him as more than an observer. He becomes a channel for wisdom that explains both the reason for the Great Flood and God's unwavering moral code. At the same time, by providing more details about the sons of God, mentioned briefly in Genesis, it tries to answer the question of why the world was so morally destroyed before Noah's day. The Book of Parables. The Book of Parables, chapters 37 to 71, shifts from the direct focus on the Watchers to broader themes of judgment, messianic hope, and the end time. It discusses a figure called the Son of Man, the Chosen One, and the Righteous One who sits on a throne of glory. Many scholars see parallels here to ideas about the Messiah that later appear in Christian writings. In these chapters, Enoch is still the recipient of visions, but now they involve the fate of rulers, sinners, and the final judgment of the entire world. The text is sometimes viewed as a later development, building on the earlier storyline found in the Book of the Watchers. While the Watchers emphasized the corruption of angels and their offspring, the Book of Parables extends the idea of divine justice to human rulers and wicked governments. The expression Son of Man here is key. In the Hebrew Bible, Son of Man often just means human being, but in these chapters of 1 Enoch, it seems to be a special title pointing to a chosen individual who will judge the world with righteousness. New Testament passages frequently use Son of Man to refer to Jesus, especially in the Gospels. Some readers see a link, suggesting that early Christian writers might have been aware of the Book of Parables and borrowed its language. However, since the Book of Parables is not found among the Qumran fragments, some doubt emerges about its exact date. It may have appeared after the other sections of 1 Enoch were already known. Still, the Book of Parables offers a window into Jewish thinking about heavenly mediators and end-time events. It describes a world in which the righteous will be rewarded, the wicked will face divine punishment, and oppressive rulers will not escape their fate. The presence of this detailed eschatology reflects the religious climate of the Second Temple period, when many Jewish groups were dealing with political turmoil, foreign domination, and questions about when divine justice would come. These chapters also introduce more angelic figures, some of whom guide Enoch through visions. Enoch experiences different levels of reality where he sees how deeds on earth connect with consequences in heaven. The Book of Parables is therefore a major piece of ancient Jewish apocalyptic literature, standing alongside texts like the Book of Daniel. Its style and content have led many to compare it with other writings that deal with the final destiny of the world and the arrival of a special judgment. The Astronomical Book. The Astronomical Book, also called the Book of the Luminaries, is another standout section of 1 Enoch. It focuses on cosmic order, especially the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. Many scholars believe fragments found at Qumran contain information more expansive than what later copies provide, suggesting early versions might have been even more detailed about the heavens. In this section, the angel Uriel is said to guide Enoch through the workings of the cosmos. One of the main ideas is a 364-day solar calendar, where each year is divided into 4 equal parts or seasons, and each season is split into 3 30-day months, plus 1 additional day. This design results in a perfect 52 weeks per year, always starting on the same day of the week. Such a calendar was also promoted by the community that wrote the Book of Jubilee, a text discovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls. It highlights a belief that correct observance of sacred times and festivals depends on a precise solar-based calendar rather than the lunar-based system used by other Jewish groups. For many, the Astronomical Book underscores the interest some ancient Jews had in astronomy and timekeeping. Rather than seeing it as purely mythic or symbolic, some interpret it as an early attempt to align religious life with an orderly vision of creation, in which accurate knowledge of the heavens reflects God's perfect design. Others see mystical or esoteric purposes, pointing out that angels teach Enoch these secrets, implying the knowledge is sacred and not widely known. This book also includes some moral teachings, showing that cosmic harmony and moral order are related. The cycles of the sun and moon, for instance, could represent divine laws that humans are supposed to respect. By observing certain festivals at the right time, believers remain in tune with that higher order. When people drift away from righteousness or tamper with sacred knowledge, it creates imbalance and leads to misfortune. There is also an interplay between the Astronomical Book and the story of the Watchers. Some Watchers introduce knowledge of divination or astrology in a corrupt manner. By contrast, the knowledge given by Uriel to Enoch is framed as lawful and pure. This points to an underlying theme in 1 Enoch. Knowledge from God, shared through proper channels, is life-giving, but knowledge gained through rebellion or deception brings destruction. The Book of Dreams. The Book of Dreams, chapters 83 to 90, features allegorical visions that tell stories about the history of Israel and the world. Some interpret these visions as stretching from the primeval past up to the Maccabean revolt in the 2nd century BC. Others, especially within the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, hold that it was written long before the flood, during Enoch's time. In these visions, animals often symbolize humans or different groups of people, while human figures can represent angels. For instance, one dream might depict white bulls for the patriarchs, while black bulls or other creatures could represent corrupt nations. It is a method of coding real historical events in symbolic form, a technique common in Jewish apocalyptic literature. The Book of Daniel, for example, uses beasts to symbolize various empires. By listing or implying different historical epochs, the Book of Dreams offers a panoramic view of how the author believed divine guidance interacted with human history. The text suggests that God has knowledge of every major development, from the first generations following Adam to the wars and struggles of Enoch's own time, or possibly the author's time, if we consider that this text was likely written centuries later. People who are faithful to God become identified with certain animal symbol, while oppressors or idolaters appear as dangerous creatures. Some argue that these symbolic narratives hint at a final resolution. Despite the chaos and suffering introduced by rebellions, wars, or corrupt leaders, God will ultimately save the righteous. The Book of Dreams does not merely dwell on negative events, it also anticipates a final restoration in which there is peace, safety, and alignment with divine will. That message would have been encouraging to readers living during times of occupation, forced Hellenization, or internal strife within Jewish society. One reason the Book of Dreams stands out is that it mirrors the style of other apocalyptic writings found in the Bible and outside it. This style mixes visions, angelic interpreters, and coded prophecies. The difference is that in the Book of Enoch, Enoch is the visionary, whereas in the Book of Daniel, Daniel sees the visions. Both figureheads serve as channels for divine revelations about present circumstances and future outcomes. What emerges here is a sense that even if the forces of evil appear strong, there is a hidden plan that will correct these injustices in time. Readers who accept this viewpoint may see their own struggles as part of a broader cosmic pattern. This was a powerful message for those who felt that the visible world around them was filled with difficulties and that God's justice had yet to be fully revealed. The Epistle of Enoch. The Epistle of Enoch, which usually spans chapters 91 to 108, brings together a mix of ethical teachings, apocalyptic visions, and specific prophecies. Part of this section includes what is called the Apocalypse of the Weeks. In it, the world's history is divided into 10 weeks, each representing a particular period or dispensation. 7 of these weeks are in the past, and 3 are in the future. The text finishes with a look at a new heaven, a new earth, and endless ages of goodness and righteousness. The epistle also addresses moral and spiritual duties, often through speeches to Enoch's relatives, like his son Methuselah. Enoch speaks about choosing the path of righteousness instead of the path of wrongdoing, linking this choice to God's final judgment. One reason the epistle is significant is that it unites Enoch's role as both a prophet and a teacher. Unlike in the earlier sections, where the focus is on cosmic events and the actions of angels, here we see more direct moral exhortation addressed to people. A fascinating passage appears in the part known as the birth of Noah, where the circumstances of Noah's birth are recounted. Noah is said to look quite different, with features that resemble those of angels rather than typical human offspring. This detail points back to earlier themes of divine or angelic intervention in the genealogies of humankind. While the canonical book of Genesis does not mention any unusual sign at Noah's birth, the Book of Enoch expands on that gap, implying a closer connection to the heavenly realm. The Epistle of Enoch also touches on the concept of a future day of judgment. It reiterates that all hidden deeds will be revealed and that those who remain true to divine principles will be rewarded. The wicked, in contrast, will face necessary punishment. This repeated warning reflects a broader pattern in apocalyptic texts, where urgent calls to repentance are given in light of an impending final judgment. Furthermore, the epistle includes references to the generation of light versus those doomed to darkness, which can be seen as a symbolic division between people who embrace divine truth and those who persist in wrongdoing. Many interpreters connect these ideas to a general apocalyptic worldview common in the Second Temple period, a time marked by foreign domination, internal tensions, and debates about the proper way to follow God's law. Views of early church fathers. When Christianity began to spread in the first few centuries AD, various figures in the early church had different stances on the Book of Enoch. Some church fathers wrote about the text with respect, while others dismissed it. Among those who showed interest were Justin Martyr, Athenagoras of Athens, Irenaeus, Clement of Alexandria, Origen, Tertullian, and Lactantius. They sometimes referred to Enoch's writings when discussing the angels, demons, or the cosmic order. Tertullian went as far as to call the Book of Enoch scripture, arguing that it had been rejected by the Jews because it contained prophecies concerning Christ. Yet over time, the Book of Enoch did not become a standard part of the Christian New Testament, nor was it accepted into the Jewish canon. One likely reason is that it was not originally written in Hebrew. Some parts were in Aramaic, and it was associated with groups or ideas that the mainstream might have seen as marginal or heretical. Also, its vivid imagery of angels, giants, and heavenly secrets might have seemed too speculative, especially once Christian theology became more systematized. Nevertheless, many scholars think its themes influenced parts of the New Testament. For instance, the Epistle of Jude in the New Testament quotes a prophecy that appears to match a passage in 1 Enoch 1:9 about God coming with 10,000s of his holy ones. This connection suggests that at least some early Christians were aware of Enochic texts and treated them as significant. In North Africa, Tertullian's endorsement was notable because he was a major Christian writer. He defended the Book of Enoch against those who questioned its authenticity, pointing to Jude's usage as proof. However, other church authorities eventually decided that Enoch's visions were not to be recognized as canonical. One possible factor is that the Book of Enoch includes ideas that could blur lines between angels and men, a topic that the emerging orthodoxy might have considered problematic. Also, the references to the Watchers might have clashed with the official stance on spiritual beings and their role in salvation history. Despite these disputes, Enochic themes did not vanish. They showed up in medieval literature, folklore, and even some mystical traditions. Yet, it was in Ethiopia that the original text was preserved in full, copied over centuries in the ancient Ge'ez language. When Ethiopian manuscripts of 1 Enoch were brought to the attention of European scholars in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, it caused a stir. Many had only known about 1 Enoch through scattered Greek or Latin fragments or through references in older works. Finding a complete version reignited academic interest and led to translations into modern languages. Thanks for watching another episode. While you are still here, make sure to click the video on your screen for more quality content.